Friends, today is Josh Duggar's birthday. At any other time, the entire Duggar family might have celebrated this day together. But today, the picture is completely different. While Josh sits alone behind the four walls of a jail cell, a small message from his sister, Jessa Seewald, has suddenly created a huge stir on social media. And honestly, this one message has exposed the terrible divide inside the Duggar family in a way none of us expected. Well, have you ever wondered, why did Jessa speak up at this exact moment? And how big of a shock is hidden behind this quiet little message? In today's video, I'll show you what Jessa's message may really mean, and why many people believe it's a major warning sign for the Duggar family. I also found some insider details that might completely change the way you look at this story. So watch until the end, because today's birthday drama has a twist that could change everything. Come on, friends, let's decode this explosive update together. For years, the Duggar family has tried to move carefully, avoiding the shadow of Josh Duggar's criminal conviction. Publicly, many family members stayed silent. Some completely distanced themselves. Others made very careful statements about faith, forgiveness, and prayer. But sometimes, even a tiny moment can pull everyone back into the conversation again. And this time, that moment involves Jessa. According to online discussions among Duggar followers and reality TV fans, viewers recently noticed a subtle but meaningful birthday message connected to Josh. There was no huge public tribute, no dramatic family reunion photos, just something small, quiet, personal, and because the Duggar family almost never speaks openly about Josh anymore, even the smallest gesture suddenly becomes massive online news. What makes this even more interesting is Jessa's complicated position inside the family. She has never been the sibling who openly rebelled against her family, at least not publicly. Compared to Jill Duggar or Ginger Vuolo, Jessa has generally stayed much closer to the Duggar lifestyle and family structure that viewers remember from the old reality TV days. She still seems connected to many family traditions. She still speaks very carefully in public, and she has often appeared determined to avoid public conflict within the family. And honestly, that matters a lot here. Because every Duggar sibling has handled Josh's situation differently. Some became emotionally distant, some became physically distant from the family itself. Some stopped appearing together publicly as much as before, and others became quieter than ever. But Jessa has mostly stayed somewhere in the middle, and I think that middle ground is exactly why people are paying so much attention right now. Because when someone who is usually cautious suddenly makes even a tiny gesture, people immediately start wondering if there's a deeper meaning behind it. Now, the reported message itself was not explosive, and that's important to clarify. There was no public defense of Josh's actions. There was no claim that he was innocent. There was no attack on victims. Instead, the conversation focused on language about prayer, family concern, and spiritual support. And honestly, that distinction matters. There's a huge difference between emotionally supporting a family member and defending what they did. But for many viewers, even that line feels uncomfortable in a case like this. Josh Duggar's crimes permanently changed the public's view of the family. Long before his federal conviction, the scandals involving his sisters had already damaged the perfect image that made the family famous in the first place. Then the criminal case made everything even worse. It completely changed public opinion about the Duggars. So now, Every sibling faces an impossible balancing act. How do you acknowledge someone as family without seeming like you're excusing their actions? That's really the center of this entire conversation. And honestly, I think that's why this story has connected so deeply with people online. Because this is no longer just about Josh. It's about loyalty, boundaries, religion, family pressure, forgiveness, and what support is supposed to look like after something terrible happens. Jessa's past comments have only made things more complicated. Years ago, after the original scandals became public, both Jessa and Jill spoke in interviews about parts of their upbringing, while also identifying themselves as victims of Josh's actions. At the time, many viewers found those interviews emotionally difficult to watch. The sisters appeared trapped between protecting the family image and publicly acknowledging their own trauma. And ever since then, fans have constantly tried to figure out where each sibling emotionally stands today. Some people believe Jessa chose loyalty to the family system above everything else. Others think she simply wants to keep family matters private and avoid public conflict. And some viewers believe she may be struggling with these issues far more deeply than outsiders realize. What makes all of this especially interesting is that the Duggar family was built around the image of unity. For years, viewers watched birthdays, weddings, holidays, and giant family gatherings become part of the Duggar brand. The entire image depended on togetherness. Everyone smiling together, everyone supporting each other, everyone appearing spiritually united. But scandals test family images in ways reality TV families can't easily control. And when someone like Josh becomes so publicly controversial, even completely ordinary family moments suddenly become controversial too. A simple birthday message becomes headline news. And honestly, that says a lot about how fragmented the Duggar family story has become. Viewers once saw them as one united family. Now fans constantly analyze who attends events together, who comments online, who stays silent, and who appears distant. Even silence itself has become part of the story. Some people online reacted with outrage to the alleged communication. They argue that any public support for Josh risks minimizing the seriousness of his crimes. Others believe the family should stop centering Josh completely, and instead focus attention on victims and the siblings affected by years of scandal. And the criticism has been especially intense among former Duggar fans who once supported the family, but later felt betrayed. At the same time, another group has defended Jessa's position. Their argument is simple: praying for a family member is not the same as supporting their actions. They believe someone can maintain personal faith and family relationships without approving of terrible behavior. And honestly, whether people agree or disagree, that's probably the hardest part of this entire discussion. Because real families are messy, most people understand that emotionally disconnecting from a relative is not always easy, especially in deeply religious families where forgiveness is constantly emphasized. In communities like the one the Duggar family was connected to, prayer and reconciliation are often treated as spiritual responsibilities. That doesn't erase accountability, but it may explain why some relatives maintain limited contact even after public disgrace. And honestly, one of the saddest parts of this story is imagining what this pressure feels like. For the siblings themselves, imagine growing up inside one of the most publicly criticized families in America. Then imagine knowing that the actions of one sibling permanently changed how the entire world sees your family. After that, every decision becomes symbolic. If you say nothing, people analyze your silence. If you say too much, people criticize your words. If you stay in personal contact, people question your morality. And if you completely cut ties, people assume the family is falling apart. There's really no easy answer. Another reason this story keeps attracting attention is because Duggar followers have spent years trying to figure out which siblings remain close to each other. For example, Jill Duggar openly discussed conflict with her parents and boundaries within the family structure. Ginger Vuolo became more open about distancing herself from some teachings she grew up with. But Jessa often appeared more connected to the traditional Duggar world than some of her sisters. So when people hear about possible private communication from Jessa, many take it as proof that at least part of the family still maintains contact with Josh behind the scenes. Now honestly, this probably shouldn't completely shock anyone. Most families do not completely erase a relative from existence, even after terrible situations. The difference here is visibility. The Duggar family built their public identity around morality, religion, and family values. So naturally, the public watches their personal relationships much more closely than normal families. That's why every tiny interaction becomes newsworthy. And another major factor here is image management. For years, the Duggar family understood television and media very well. They knew how to project unity, optimism, and faith. But today, things are very different. Social media watches everything. Reddit threads analyze every post. Fans compare screenshots, timelines, and comments constantly. So even a simple phrase like, "I'm praying for you," suddenly becomes interpreted as a major public statement. The public reaction has become deeply divided. Some viewers believe sympathy and prayer are basic human responses, even towards someone who has done terrible things. Others argue that public support for disgraced figures can unintentionally hurt victims and shift emotional focus away from accountability. And honestly, both reactions reveal something important about modern reality TV audiences. People are no longer passive viewers anymore. They analyze morality, they question power structures, they examine family dynamics closely, and they pay attention to how public figures behave during crises. Especially families that built their reputations around religion and values. What makes Jessa's role even more fascinating is that she hasn't completely reinvented herself publicly like some of her sisters. Ginger moved toward a more modern public image. Jill became increasingly independent over time, but Jessa still seems connected to much of the old Duggar identity, while also trying to carefully manage her modern public image. And honestly, this balancing act may explain why people are now so curious about her intentions. Was this simply a private expression of faith and family responsibility? Or does it hint that the family is slowly reconnecting behind the scenes? Right now, there's no public evidence of a major Duggar reunion. And it's important not to treat online speculation as fact. But viewers are clearly attaching emotional meaning to these small gestures, especially because the family has stayed unusually quiet overall. And silence always creates intrigue. Personally, I think the bigger story here isn't even Josh anymore. It's about how the siblings are trying to live normal lives, while carrying the burden of a scandal that never fully disappears. No matter what they post online, someone connects it back to Josh. No matter how joyful the family event is, people bring up the family history again. And for siblings like Jessa, that probably creates enormous pressure about how visible or invisible family relationships should be. At the end of the day, people may never fully agree on whether emotionally supporting a disgraced relative is acceptable. Some believe family bonds should survive almost anything. Others believe certain actions permanently change relationships forever. But one thing is clear: the Duggar family's carefully controlled image of perfect unity is gone. Now, every tiny interaction reveals how complicated these relationships may really be behind the scenes. And honestly, that's probably why this birthday message sparked such intense discussion online. Not because of drama alone, but because it felt human, messy, quiet, uncomfortable, and real. And the family that once spent years presenting perfect television moments is now showing more complicated human moments than ever before. There's more to this story, but before we continue, I want to say something quickly. No matter how busy or exhausted I get during the day, whenever I sit down to make Duggar family videos for you guys, I genuinely forget all my stress. It honestly feels like I'm just sitting and talking with friends. And I truly hope these videos bring at least a little bit of joy into your day. Because at the end of the day, this connection we have means a lot to me. Now, let's continue and see what happened next. Jessa Duggar reportedly wrote a letter to her brother Josh Duggar while he was in prison on his birthday, saying, "Praying for you." 4 years ago, during Josh's first birthday behind bars, Jessa Seewald sent him a letter. According to a letter obtained by People magazine and published on Monday, May 11th, Jessa, now 33 years old, wrote to Josh, who is 38 at the time. "Happy birthday, Josh. We love you and are praying for you. Love, the Seewald family." According to reports, the letter was sent on Josh's 34th birthday in 2022. At that time, Josh was being held at the Washington County Detention Center after pleading guilty to federal charges involving child sexual abuse material. Josh has strongly denied the allegations and attempted multiple appeals since pleading not guilty during his April 2021 hearing. Reports claim Jessa's letter was the only message Josh received from any sibling on his 34th birthday. Jim Bob Duggar and Michelle Duggar, along with Josh and Jessa, share many other children including Jana, John David, Jill, Ginger, Joseph, Josiah, Joy Hannah, Jedediah, Jeremiah, Jason, James, Justin, Jackson, Johanna, Jennifer, Jordan Grace, and Yosh.